Welcome to the book of Shmuel Alef, chapter 8, Perek Chet, where Shmuel encounters the same type of problems that Eli had, and that is the issue of succession. Sometimes you have a great leader, but their child is not necessarily that great, and that's what happens with Shmuel. He has two sons, Yoel and Aviyah. They are judges in the city of Beersheba, but they take briberies. They are horrible people. They are not good leaders. And so Bnei Israel come to Shmuel, and they say, look, you know your sons are not good leaders. They don't judge us properly. They accept briberies. Guess what we want? We want a king like all the other nations. Now, one problem does not necessarily solve the other problem, right? The fact that Shmuel's sons were corrupt doesn't mean that Bnei Israel should move to a system of monarchy. And even if you need to have a system of a monarch, of a king, it doesn't mean when you ask for it, you should say, oh, I want it to be like all the nations around me. It doesn't mean you should say, I want a melech kechol hagoyim, like all the nations around me. There's different ways to ask for it. And actually, this is the most famous chapter in the book of Shmuel because so many people, even who are not Jewish, use it to discuss the issue of having a king versus having different types of government. That is what you have in this week's, in this chapter. And so Shmuel turns to Hashem, and he's like, this is a horrible thing. Shmuel is very offended. He's like, the Bnei Israel want a king. What do I do? So Hashem says to Shmuel, actually, you should listen to them, but that's not for good reason. You should listen to them because it's not that they're sick of you and your sons. They are sick of me, of Hashem, as their king. And from the day I took them out of Egypt, they always abandoned me. They went to worship Avodah Zarah, and now they're abandoning you, so don't take it personally. However, I, Hashem, am telling you, Shmuel, here's the story. Tell them they can have a king, but read them the terms and conditions. Let them know Mishpat HaMelech. Let them know what the laws of having a king are, and see if they want to sign up for this. So Shmuel speaks to them all the words of Hashem, and he says to them, okay, you want a king? No problem. But here is what a king is allowed to do. The second you sign up for this system called Monarchy, the second you have a king, here's the story, here's what's going to happen. Number one, if you have children, you have sons, and he wants them to be the drivers of his chariots, he can do that. If he wants to take your sons as the people running in front of his chariot, he can do that. He can take your children to harvest his harvest and to plow his fields and to make his weapons. And he can take your daughters to work in his kitchens and in his places and bakeries. And he can take your fields and your vineyards and your olive groves. He can take everything he wants. He can take your servants, he can take your young men, he can take your donkeys, he can take your sheep, he can turn you into slaves, he can do anything. And at that time, when that will happen and you appoint a king and he's going to be a dictator and he's going to be mean and he's going to take everything you have, then you're going to call out to Hashem and you're going to say, Hashem, help us, we have this horrible king who's taking everything from us. But Hashem is not going to answer you because you chose this path. So you want a king? No problem. But just remember the terms and conditions. People do not listen to Shmuel, and they say, no, this sounds great. We want a king. Not that they necessarily want all the bad things, but they're like, we want a king because we want a king like the other nations. We want someone who's going to be our leader, who's going to fight our wars. And Shmuel is like, no problem. If you want, go for it. And Hashem says, you know what? I will get on it. Mission, I'm on the task. I'm going to go get you a king. Everybody go back home, and I'll be working on it. That's going to be my homework. That is chapter 8, Perek Chet. So it's a very simple chapter, basic chapter. Bnei Israel come see that Shmuel's sons, Aviyah and Yoel, are very, very corrupt. They accept bribes. They come to Shmuel. They say, we want a king, but they don't just ask for any king. They say, we want a king like all the other nations. And so these sons, Aviyah and Yoel, are in Beersheba, and Bnei Israel are tired of them, so they say, we want a king like all the other nations. Shmuel's really mad. He's like, wait, they don't want me? And then Hashem's like, no, it's not that they're rejecting you. They're rejecting God as their king. They always don't listen to me. But if they want a king, no problem. Give them a king, but read them the terms and conditions. Let them know that if they do appoint a king, then they will have to deal with the consequences. And having a king means he has total power over you. He can take your children, he can take your fields, he can take your animals, he can take you as slaves, and you will have nothing to do about it. And one day, you guys will have this king, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, we never wanted such a thing. Sorry, tough luck. If your king is too mean to you, I can help you because I warned you. I told you not to have a king. That is chapter 8, Parakhet. See you next chapter. Let's see how this king thing works out.